Verse 558. That the world is born of a supreme soul, and that changes are due to the qualities. This is what the school of Kapita teaches its disciples, but it is not the right way of thinking. It says in my text, Kapita, but I think that must be a typo. I'm sure this is referring to the Samkhya school of philosophy, an ancient school of Hindu philosophy. And again, I'm not interested in attacking any particular school of philosophy, because we want to make this verse relevant to our present situation and not get caught up in some archaic debate. The point about the Samkhya philosophy is, as it states here, there's this idea that the world is born of a supreme soul. This is the Purusha, the cosmic person. And the idea is that we are all basically fragments of this cosmic person. We are these individualized souls, jivas, and we're born into this world of matter and somehow must purify ourselves to once again free ourselves from the world of matter. So in the previous verses we are concerned with the scientific point of view and the side effect of it, giving substance to the idea of an external physical world. In this case, what we're looking at is this idea of a soul, that somehow we, the individuals, are real. And when you've got this idea of a soul related to the cosmic person, then you're giving substance, you're giving weight, gravity to the idea of an individual. And as far as enlightenment practice is concerned, this is something we have to drop, it's something we have to move away from. And this is very much the emphasis of religion, even Buddhist religion. It puts tremendous stress on the individual. It puts the individual as the one who has responsibility. Responsibility to live correctly and to avoid damnation and to seek salvation. And by extension, religion also gives emphasis to the community, which is the world of conventional understanding. Again, if we're enlightenment practitioners, although we can still engage with all that, we also need to emotionally step back from it, emotionally stop investing in it, and come back to the truth of awareness once again. Verse 559. There is no reality, no non-reality, nor is there any world of causation conditioned by causation. As there is nothing to be characterized as causation, non-reality never has its rise. Both the scientific and the religious mindset tend to subscribe to the idea that at one point there was nothing. This is non-reality. And at some point there was an event, a natural event if you're a scientist, or a divine event if you're religious. God created the world. And then everything came into operation. There was causation. And this is very much the Buddhist belief as well. At least as far as each world system is concerned. There was never a time when there wasn't anything. But there were spaces, there were gaps, at which point the whole universe comes into being once again, and there's the evolution of beings due to causation, because causation is that factor which once again gives credence to the belief in an external world, but also gives credence to the belief in an individual. The Enlightenment practitioner gives credence to neither. And so the idea of non-reality from which all this began is not something that's giving credence either. The point is, in our relationship to what is going on, don't think in terms of history. Don't think in terms of world history or social history. Don't think in terms of genealogy, personal history. Don't think in terms of family and parents and DNA. When you come back to this moment, truly, then there's only experiencing going on, or what we could call creation, and it's fresh and it's vibrant, it's pristine, it has no history. All history is created in the moment by consciousness, just as it does in a dream. We can see this happening in the dream. Consciousness is operating in a dream. It's operating now. It's doing its thing, creating history from moment to moment. But when we bypass that and come back to consciousness itself, everything is pristine. The world is new. I am new. And every moment, therefore, is a fresh beginning. Isn't that wonderful? There is no baggage, historically or personally. I think most of the world's problems could be solved. I suppose it's a little bit of a diversion, but one of the things we're good at in the West is holding grudges. It's the same in the Middle East. Grudges, vendettas can go on for generations. This is actually the heritage of the Semitic religions, of Judaism, Islam and Christianity. They have this very strong sense of time and of their own stories. But in the Far East, perhaps I'm idealising it somewhat, I get the impression they don't go in for these generational memories. Doesn't matter how intense the slaughter, the massacres, the warfare. People are ready just to get on with it once again. Put it all behind them. And if they can't, I think it's usually because they've been influenced by this Western, Middle Eastern mindset, which doesn't like to forget, it hangs on to the past. But as Enlightenment practitioners, if we can tune in to this wisdom, which geographically flowered to an amazing extent in India and China, if we can tune into that, then we're born anew. The world is born anew from moment to moment. There was never a time when it was not. That's the thing. Although it's born afresh, anew from moment to moment, this has always been so. This is the nature. This is the nature of it all. This is it. This is the eternal truth. In 560, consolidates this. My statement is free from the alternatives of being and non-being. There is just eternal isness. It is removed from cause and condition, has nothing to do with birth and destruction, and is removed from qualified and qualifying. So it's removed from the alternatives of being and non-being. There's only ever being with a capital B. There was never a point when there was no being. It's removed from cause and condition. The idea that the present moment arose through a sequence of events stretching back into ancient times. We drop this, we drop this. This moment is part of the spontaneous outpouring of creation, of consciousness. It has nothing to do with birth and destruction. All the apparent changes that are going on, all the apparent comings and goings, the apparent beginnings and endings, these are all stories, stories in time, stories based on history, stories based on cause and conditions. In enlightenment practice, we come back to the freshness of this moment and is removed from qualified and qualifying. So we're no longer concerned with giving various qualities to what's going on, saying that this is desirable, this is not desirable, that's beautiful, that's ugly, this is harmonious, that's not harmonious, that's dissonant, and so on. We don't get caught up in that game. We can play that game, we have to play that game when we engage, but when we're practicing, we come back to what the Buddha calls his statement. 561. When the world is regarded as like Maya and a dream, exempt from cause and condition, and eternally causeless, there is no rising of imagination. This might sound like a bad thing because imagination is supposed to be good, but here imagination is to do with beliefs about the world, beliefs about the individual, scientific beliefs, religious beliefs. This is the imagination. You know, religious people like to say it's the word of God, but it's a construction of their own mind. It's a construction of human minds. And their belief is a construction of their own mind. Nothing to do with God. It's a great arrogance of the ego to claim any knowledge of the mind of God. To claim to know the will of God because it's written down in a book somewhere or some individual told you. This all comes from the human mind. And it's obvious by the behaviour of such people who insist otherwise, because they indulge the excesses of their ego, and such excesses are full of anger and violence and indignation and rage. This is the monstrous ego in action. This is the imagination, the beliefs, what is usually referred to as the false imagination. So let's regard the world as like Maya and a dream. The distinction being that Maya is that force which leads us to believe in the reality of our imagination, of our imagined beliefs about reality. It's actually the power of consciousness. This is the power of consciousness itself. It's so powerful. Its creative energy is such that it believes in its own projections. This is Maya. But once we see how consciousness works, we can come back to it in its prime or primordial nature. This is the attention. Consciousness sounds like an abstract philosophical concept, but it's what's happening right now. It's what's in operation right now in the form of the attention. It's what's hearing this. It's what's experiencing anything else that's going on. This is the attention. And when we stop directing it outwards, if you stop listening to my voice out here and actually hear it, where you're actually experiencing it, which is right at the center of your being, if you can stop projecting your attention out here, out onto the video, or out into space somewhere, and come back. You can ignore the words now if you like, just ignore the words, and come back to your own awareness, or come back to awareness. It's not your awareness, it's just awareness. Come back to it. Be in it. Be in it. The world is like Maya and a dream. Come back to ultimate freshness. No history. No personal history. No you. No world. Just a stream of experiencing going on. And awareness. The attention comes back to itself. And abides in the realization of its own nature as awareness, mind only. I'll finish off with verse 562. When existence is always regarded as resembling the Gandharva's city, a mirage, a hairnet, and is free from the alternatives of being and non-being, removed from cause and condition and causeless, then the mind flows clear of defilements. And hopefully you experience that even just for a few moments, the mind flowing clear of defilements. The world is regarded like Maya and a dream in the previous verse. Here existence is described as regarding the Gandharva city. This is castles in the sky, a mirage, a hairnet. A hairnet, which is something which holds things into various shapes and patterns. This is the mind which wants to make patterns, make connections. Free from the alternatives of being and non-being, removed from cause and condition and causeless, and the mind flows clear of defilements. And this is enlightenment practice. Even if we can practice it just for a few moments now and again, that's something. But let's remember this. Remember when we're not practicing. Try and remember. And watch out for the habit of dismissing it, or the habit of judging yourself for not practicing. Instead of that, instead of dismissing it, instead of judging yourself, practice. If you don't want to practice, so be it. Just come back to it whenever the inclination is there. Even if it's only just for a few moments as you hear these videos. perhaps try yourself looking at a text, one of the wisdom texts, and allow it to remind yourself of your essential truth, your essential reality.